Yeah, one of my daughters, are they going to have any more turtles?
Okay.
Maybe that could be
That's a
another
good
book.
question. So I asked my husband, I was like, oh, I want it to be a big family. And he's like, that's a lot to draw. Let's just keep it at three. And I said,
Welcome back to our house. I've been looking forward to this interview for a while. We have a very special guest and my personal friend, Mrs. Joann Jimenez. She is the wife of the pastor of Verity Baptist Church in Sacramento, California. She's a wonderful homeschooling mother to 6 children and now a children's book author. How exciting. This is a new Christian children's book series, so we're going to be talking about that in this video. Thank you for being here today.
thank you for having me, Karen. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
You've had a very productive lockdown. You've had a book launch, you're advertising, promoting it, and you started a puppet show that we can talk about after the book.
Okay.
So yeah, things haven't slowed down for you, have they?
No, I've got more time. So more time to do things.
Yes, I feel that way too. I think I can look back at all the blessings of this time where I really fine-tuned some things and, you think you let things slip. The more kids you have, the more time goes on. So this is a great time to just tighten it up and, go forward with your passion projects like you have. So yeah, it's a great time for that. So for those that are not familiar with the book, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so it's called The Adventures of Herb Meyer, and it's about a turtle, and you get to see kind of inside his life, and he is just in his home with his family, and it's going to be a series. So each book will deal with a topic. So the first topic is on obedience. So Herb gets in a little bit of trouble because he disobeys, and you just get him to see him like learning through it. And so that's how we want each thing. It's based on the Bible. He learns like a Bible lesson that his dad teaches, and it kind of just goes along with him learning the character traits is basically what it is. So this first one's obedience. The second one's going to be complaining. We'll probably do one on honesty and being kind. So kind of just things that you want your children to learn.
And I like how you have also printables on your website. My kids make me print these out all the time.
I'm sorry.
They love them. No, they wanted to meet you. I interview people, and when I told them today who I was interviewing, they were just like, wow, the creator of the Herb Meyer books and the puppet show. I'll let them talk up afterwards. They wanted to see you on the camera. So I wanted to ask you, what were some of your favorite? We love to talk about books here at our house. So what were some of your favorite books growing up? Were you a reader? Did some of those books kind of stick with you? I know you have rhyming in your book and it's colorful. Mm-hmm. Did that come to you from books in your childhood?
Yes, I would say definitely. I grew up with a lot of books. My grandmother was a teacher and she was an English teacher. So we grew up just with a lot of books, and she would always buy us new books, and we'd go to garage sales and pick up books. So my siblings and I, we just loved books. We each had our bookshelf and it was filled with books. So reading was something that was really important to us. And so a couple of books that kind of stuck with me. Well, before I even learned to read, my favorite was The Hungry Caterpillar. And I had the whole book memorized. I couldn't read, but people thought I could read because I memorized it word perfect. So I loved it. And then I would say another book that kind of stuck with me. It's not a very common book, but it's called Perfect Percy. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I haven't.
Yeah. So it's
Let me write this down so I can go. Okay, what's it about?
So it's about this little grasshopper, and he's kind of like this overachiever. Okay, so he likes everything perfect, just so everything in order. He gets good grades, like everything's just perfect about his life. But in his home, it's very chaotic. His parents are really loud and messy and disorganized. And he has this friend who's a beetle. And the beetle's kind of like him. And he goes to the beetle's house. Well, his parents, everything is in order there too. And it's kind of really strict home. And basically, Percy just learns that he didn't like that environment and that he loved his own like kind of chaotic family. And it just was kind of about being content with the loving family that you have, not looking at like other family and thinking, oh, I want that. And I probably identified with that maybe because sometimes my house could be crazy at times, so it really stuck with me. I
Yes.
don't know. I really liked the book of just, it's more important to be in like a loving environment than the appearance of a perfect environment. Yeah.
I like that. I'm going to look it up. That sounds
Yeah.
really good, especially when you have a large family, you have 6 children,
Yeah.
I do too, sharing rooms and sharing toys and sharing spaces. You want to convey to them that you're so blessed, and so those kind of books, I think, they do really help to teach them to be content and realize what they have, right? So that's awesome. I'm going to check that out. So when did you first realize that you wanted to write this book series?
Yeah. So it was probably years ago. I was just kind of in a search of a book that would be teaching character traits, but not just character traits, also using the Bible and specifically the King James Bible. And that was also interesting and fun at the same time. And I just couldn't find anything like that. So we just kind of decided to create it ourselves, my husband and I. So yeah. So I would say it was probably about maybe 8 or 10 years ago that we kind of talked about the idea of writing a children's book because he can do the illustration, he draws. So that's basically how it came about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I always try to tell people and teach my children is find a need and fill it, right? We've all heard that. Find a need and fill it. So you found a need because there aren't any children's book with King James Bibles in this style, this way that you're presenting it. It just doesn't exist. I mean, I like the Help Me Be Good books, but there's no Bible in that, no plan of salvation. So I love that. And I can see how your love of like the animal stories, like the caterpillars, the beetles, it came about to have it. How did that come about, the whole box turtle as the family, the main thing?
Yeah. So growing up, when I was 10 years old, I had a box turtle and his name was Herb Meyer. And he did have a sister named Emily too. So those are the 2 characters, their brother and sister in the book. So we just named the book after my box turtle, Herb Meyer. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's cute. My kids, they love this book. And the picture of them, one of my daughters, are they going to have any more turtles?
Okay. That's a good question. So I asked my husband, I was like, I want it to be a big family. And he's like, that's a lot to draw. Let's just keep it at 3. I said, okay.
Okay, I understand now. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Oh, how funny. So that could be another book one day.
Yes.
So, this book, like we talked about, it has it all. It has the memorable rhymes, and you have the rhyme here on the back too. It has the colorful pages, the illustrations that are really engaging for the children. Like you said, Bible, morals, but even the plan of salvation at the end, which is fantastic. So was this a lot more work than you thought it was going to be, or did it come together just really easily?
There were a couple of challenges. I would say one of the challenges were my husband, he can draw, but he had never had any experience in coloring. So that was kind of a challenge for him. But he just bought some markers. At first we were like experimenting with other things, but we found that just doing the markers worked well. It was time consuming, but it worked. He would have to do it over twice, and anything out of the lines he'd have to redo. So that was kind of a challenge. And then also I had written the whole story. It was not in a rhyming format. And my husband had said, it'd be really neat if you could get the book to rhyme. And I thought, oh no.
No biggie, right?
Yeah. I'm like, that's going to be really hard. And my main concern was that I would take away from the story. Like I wanted to have the message there. And I thought, if I make it rhyme, you're not really going to get that, the same plot, the same storyline. So, so he kept mentioning it. So one day I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to try it, and if it doesn't work, we'll just stick with the original. So I sat down and it actually came together a lot easier than I thought it would be. And I didn't really feel like you missed out on the message. It was still saying the same thing that the original story said. So I just decided, and it was nice because it was kind of a challenge for me, it was like challenging me, but I really enjoyed it. So the fact that it's rhyming was, a bit of a challenge. So.
Did you use any like websites or are you just really committed to just sitting there and writing out all the rhymes for yourself?
Yeah, well, I would try to, I think having the story already set forth helped guide me, so
Yes.
I knew the next step I wanted to say. So that helped a lot. And I would just think, and sometimes I'd just be like folding laundry and something would come to me. I'm like, oh, that's good. Write it down real quick. So yeah, so it was a project. It was hard. Some things came really easy. And then there's just like that one sentence that kind of, got stuck on, but then it eventually came. So it was
No, you did a wonderful job. And it really helps kids, I think, stay engaged and follow along through. And it still has that same impact. So you did an awesome job with that.
Thank
So
you.
I don't know of many husband and wife teams when it comes to children's books. I think that's pretty unique. What was it like working on this project together? Was he, because men are the head of the home, was he the head of the project, or you were the head of the project?
So I feel like his job was a little bit harder at times because it was kind of like you write the story, then you do the illustration. So I was kind of waiting for him to finish, for some of it. So it was like a lot of late nights while the kids were sleeping. He would be, drawing, or sometimes if the kids were awake, I'm like, kids, let's all go upstairs. And he'd be at the kitchen, drawing. So I tried to like carve out time to where the kids weren't going to bump into him or things like that. So it was neat. It was a neat experience. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, working together brings people together, closer.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure it's on a different level, and more to talk about than just the kids, right?
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
Yeah.
So, okay, what was one of the most surprising things you learned creating your books? Any advice for something, like you said, if you see a need, fill it. So any advice for someone out there who's thinking, I would really like to do that, but I don't even know where to begin. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think because you don't really have any time restraints, you have to kind of create your own goals. So we kind of created these time sensitive goals, but there was no pressure that it had to be done. So we had to try to find ways to motivate ourselves. So one of the ways that we motivated ourselves was we were kind of keeping it like a family secret because we didn't want to say, oh, we're writing a book and then it never came out, So we told our kids that let's not say anything yet because, we're kind of far along from the project. But as it got closer to kind of motivate us, we started telling like our close friends, like, oh, we're writing the book, so that they would be like, oh, is the book finished yet? So we kind of felt that pressure more. Because it's easy just to get so busy with your day-to-day life to find the time to sit down and accomplish it. So it was kind of this pressure of friends asking, oh, is the book almost done? So that helped. And then I guess my advice would be you should set goals, time-sensitive goals with, maybe we're going to do this in 1 month or this project in the next 2 months. But if something arises, a problem arises, don't rush it, because once the book's printed, it's printed. So take your time, but don't take too much time, so.
Yes, that is excellent advice, because I think a lot of people have those ideas, like, I would love to do this, but because there's no pressure, there's maybe no publisher saying you have this deadline. Like you said, you have to find ways to keep yourself motivated and on task. And creating those little kind of micro goals, and like you said, creating that pressure within your environment, that works. I mean, it worked here for you. So that's excellent advice. So let's talk about what's next for you. Now people are asking you, when's the next one coming, right? When's book 2 coming? So what are your plans?
So Herb Meyer is set up like a series. And so the next one, Lord willing, it will be done in June. We're still working on some things, but it's called Herb Learns to Not Complain. So he's going to learn about complaining. And I think I'm trying to hit the things that parents, struggle with the most. And complaining is one of those daily things that we have to teach our children, is to not complain. So I'm really excited about that one. It's all the way written. My husband still has a few illustrations to work on, but it's coming along. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. So yeah, let's tell people too about the puppet show that you have on your channel called Help for the Home. And I just want to say, Help for the Home, I love that channel. I love that you guys started that. There's videos there really that are just help for the home, from, especially with the lockdown, how to give your husband a haircut. They have all kinds of different topics on there, kind of frequently asked questions, like you said, questions that people have. And you also have a Christian puppet show, and we all love it. My kids love it. And you kind of do the same thing, you know, with the things that parents struggle with the most in the puppet show. And it's funny because Amy has become kind of like a, what is it called? A byword here in our house. We're like, don't be an Amy.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So it is so wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about that, where people can find it? All that good
Sure.
stuff.
So it's on Help for the Home, and it's just a puppet show. We do it as a family. We have a lot of fun with it. We practice, you know, because controlling those puppets are a lot harder than you think. Some people think it's just like, oh, open like this, but you're only supposed to open the bottom. Your hand gets sore. You're having to reach up your arm all the way. So it's a lot of fun, and making the voices is fun. And so, yeah, like you said, we're doing the same thing. We're trying to teach like a character trait. We're working on one is actually obedience. And something that we just recently started incorporating is we're trying to actually read Bible passages. So the next one we're working on is going to be Adam and Eve and when they disobeyed. So, but we're also going to apply it to kids. You know, not only are we supposed to obey God, but we're also supposed to obey our parents. And Amy's going to be kind of disobedient on there and not do exactly what her mom wants. So it'll be fun. So Amy is kind of our household name, but I have what I call these stories that I tell my kids are called Molly and Stinky stories. And Molly's like the model child. She always does what's right, mostly. And Stinky is the little troublemaker. And so we kind of made Amy into Stinky. And I just think it helps kids. Like, for example, if I were telling my kids a story about Molly and Stinky and about being responsible, about, you know, maybe they come home and they put their shoes just where they go. You know, Molly, she goes and she puts her shoes away right in the closet where they belong. But Stinky comes home and she just throws off her shoes, you know, just let them land where they fall. And my younger girls will often say like, oh, you're being like Stinky. Oh, and then they'll try to quickly fix it. Like, oh, no, I want to be like Molly. So I do feel like kids can identify with characters and the personalities more than rather than just like pointing a finger at them, like you're being naughty, you did this. Rather, it's like, no, I want to be like Molly. I don't want to be like Stinky. So I feel like stories are just a good way to learn, you know, character traits and things that we should be doing.
And you're so right about that because you can't just discourage behavior. You have to replace it. So if you just tell kids like, don't leave your shoes there, they don't know what to compare it to. So doing that, that's brilliant. The Molly and Stinky, you know, and with Amy and the puppet show, and it's Freddie, right? The boy.
Yes, Freddie.
You have to have that contrast. You have to give them that model, that example, instead of just saying like, don't do this. Well, they have the best way to replace it with good action. So that's brilliant. And then I love how you do the hand signals for memorizing the Bible verses, because I do that all the time, but I don't know if anybody else in our church that does that when we do Bible memory passage. So they look at us like we're just weird, you know, doing all our little signs. But I think it does really help, you know, the kids memorize it. So I'm glad. Do you do that just for the show, or you do that in general?
Okay, so it's interesting. The kids and I will memorize scriptures often, and the ones like we did Ephesians 6 chapter 6 to motions, and we did 1 John chapter 1 to motions, and we have that one, we've retained it so much better than the other ones that we haven't done motions with. So I feel like having the motions really does help you to retain it, you know. So yes,
I agree with you. Let's start the wave. Let's start the trend. Okay, well, I love it. Tell us where people can find and buy your books.
Yes, so you can get it on herbmeyerbooks.com. So we sell them there. And then also Framing the World sells them on that website, Framing the World. So yeah.
That's great. So everybody make sure that you pick up your copy. You're going to love it. I guarantee it. And also the coloring pages, and check out Help for the Home. So many wonderful things. It's hard, you know, with screen time, and we want to keep them off screens. If there's just those times where it's convenient, you need it just for a little bit, you know, especially with lockdown or appointments or whatever, and you want to give them something good to watch. And so this really fills that void. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing, putting all this work into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much for having me.